Okay.
Maybe this should be our YouTube post
What?
to start.
What do you mean our YouTube post?
The whatever post we have, we like hold it now for 10 seconds after it starts, so it becomes the preview image also.
It's not guaranteed to be the preview because sometimes it picks a frame from the middle,
Hmm.
so it's tweaky. So hey, folks, this is a live stream. If you are watching this and it's not live, this is a live stream. So you're watching the recording of the live stream. We need time for people to join, so you can skip ahead, or you can endure us doing small talk while waiting for people to come in. Um, yeah. Okay. And I've already like, what am I supposed to do next? In the meantime, we're going through the process of alerting friends that we're live.
Uh-uh.
And then I try to tag Toby in the Facebook post, but I can no longer find you.
Wonder why.
Isn't it weird? But then I think I can tag your name directly if I tried. But it's okay. It's a minor thing. It's just that now that you have to find the link
So
yourself.
strange.
So yeah, so I go to Twitter.
Hmm. Well, people can sing.
No, but I don't think it's about C. It's about tag permissions. But then the queens can tag you. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Mm-mm.
It's strange, and it's considering I could always tag you, and I doubt you've changed anything because you don't really tinker with your settings.
Mm-mm. Hindi ako nag-iisip. I don't think so.
And that's why Firefly was canceled. We'll blame shenanigans like that, you know.
Okay, I see now the Facebook post. Boosting the signal to our groups.
Because even
Mm-hmm.
things like that, like boosting the signal, shiny.
Okay. Reshare. Now checking Twitter. Excuse me. Mhm. Okay. Twitter share is running. Resharing it. All right. I think things are running. Hey, Javan
Hello,
has joined
Javan.
us. We'll be starting in a bit. Excuse me. Yeah.
Bleh.
Since we don't have a couple Firefly shirt, we are wearing TARDISes instead.
Infinite possibilities. There's probably you can probably fit the Serenity in the TARDIS. Somewhere in there, the show continues. Okay, I guess we can start. Let me roll credits. We'll be right back and begin tonight's discussion.
Oh yeah! Baduy Pride!
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. This Friday, we are talking about one of the shows we deeply, 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 deeply love, despite the fact it only had one season.
It didn't even have one season. It had like a half season. And that's Firefly. The show that everybody remembers for being canceled. I mean, really, it's like it's always gonna come up. And I mean there's good reasons for it. I just also wish that more people would remember the show for what it was and not what it wasn't, so to speak.
Special thanks to Mitch, to Jovan for joining us in the chat. Anyone else who's currently watching, feel free to send in comments and chats, and we'll make it part of the show if we can.
Oh,
But
and David's
yeah.
here. Hello, David.
So Firefly, 2002, it's 500 years in the future where a crew boards a Firefly and
Firefly class vessel.
yeah, and they do odd jobs in order to find ways to make sure they make ends meet, and find themselves involved in different warring factions that they may or may not necessarily be aware of.
Flash fact: I did not watch the show during its broadcast. The
Mhm.
original broadcast period. It slipped by me
Mhm.
when it first came out. But then again, this was also like when did this originally air? This was the early 2000s. So this is definitely pre-streaming, pre-video on demand. It was
Mhm.
the you must catch it on TV situation or be very creative in your sourcing.
From what I remember, and I could be wrong, I think I encountered the movie first,
Ooh, Serenity first.
and after the escape scene, I stopped. I was like, it's cool, but I wasn't that invested yet.
Mm.
But then I met the geeks, and at some point in time, they told me about the series, and I was like, wait a minute, this is connected to that movie.
Oh, Javan says watch it DVD, but before the BDM. I guess what do you mean by BDM?
Big Darn movie, I think.
Oh, I know. And then Mitch learned because of the legendary game we played. Yeah, so we keep
Mm.
the signal alive. So I only really watched it when Toby and I were together now, and then
Mm.
like okay, uh, now we have copies. Now I can finally
Mm.
sit down and watch this thing, and it's fun. It's fun, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's the greatest series ever because it was still building momentum
Mhm.
in those first 13
Mhm.
episodes. But
Big Damn movie. See?
definitely very strong character stories. And considering that there are a lot of, I was just telling Toby right before this, there are a lot of science fiction shows that I don't know why they went on as long as they did. I mean, they're not absolutely terrible, but I
Mhm.
think Firefly was probably better. Things like, and I'll get slings and arrows. I mean, things like early Farscape, a little rough,
Mhm.
and then same thing for like the first season of Stargate SG-1. It's weird. It's like it's a science fiction series based on a movie with MacGyver not being MacGyver. So, all these things.
Mitch shares that she encountered it because of the time we had her play the legendary game. Yes, Firefly does have a legendary.
Encounters.
Is it encounters? Yeah,
It's
it is.
encounters because it's face down.
Um, she was so lost playing the game and learned to appreciate it after she watched the show.
Yay! And that's how we try to help. So let's talk about the show itself, of course. So the show was created by Joss Whedon, and
Mhm.
this was already like pretty famous Joss Whedon. Like he had gone through the likes of Buffy
Buffy,
and
Angel.
Angel, and they were tremendously popular shows of the
Mhm.
time. So for him, it was clearly at the point where he could have chosen to do anything,
Mm-hmm.
and he pretty much did. Like he chose to do a science fiction western series.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, to be fair, this is not the first time we've ever had that moniker about a science fiction series, a western in space. Originally, that's how they sold Star Trek,
Mm-hmm.
that it was like Wagon to the Stars or whatever. It there are aspects of Star Trek that feel very Wild West, very
Mm-hmm.
frontier, um, but with everything else, and that managed to get through life. So Firefly was another take on this, and it was a Fox thing, and Fox is like a love hate relationship with genre television for some reason, and we'll get into that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what else you want to highlight about first the show?
So it had a collection of actors who many of us will recognize from many other shows we've learned to love.
That is true.
And it's I always wonder if did they get those jobs because of Firefly, or were they just really people who you'd think of when you're looking at genre fiction. So you have Nathan Fillion, who plays Captain Malcolm Reynolds or Mal, the main character of the show, the focus of the spotlight generally. He's
Well,
the
mainly
man.
because he's the captain.
Yeah, he's the one who brings the whole crew together. Gina Torres plays Zoe, the I guess you could say the right hand, the first mate. I don't know what's the official term.
Yeah, pretty much because it's a small ship, so it's not a military
Yeah.
structure. So that's why they don't really follow that
But
format.
she did know Mal during their time as part of the rebellion, as part of the Browncoats.
Yes.
Hence, she is loyal to him in many ways that people will be surprised, despite the fact that she's married to the pilot, Wash, who's played by Alan Tudyk.
Tujik, yeah, who I like using as a peg for some of my role playing game
Mhm.
characters.
And
Um,
has played a fantastic chicken in Moana.
Things to highlight, yes. Funnily, Jovan mentioned she became loyal to most of these actors. Watched almost every show of the ensemble after
Mm.
that. Yeah, I get that feel. I get that feel. Like we followed quite a number of them too.
Morena Baccarin plays Inara Serra, who many might remember more from the ill-fated V television series.
That was another show that didn't last very long, and yes, she ate the mouse.
Mhm. She plays a companion who is Mal's love interest, whether or not they'll accept it.
Yeah, it's definitely from an audience perspective,
Mhm.
but then like in ship, it's like one of those unspoken things. But
Mhm.
it also was complicated by the fact that the term companion is a complex role where
Mhm.
you could be crass and just say she's a prostitute,
Mhm.
but there's a lot more to it. I mean, it's definitely like a very high class
It
escort
draws from
thing. Yeah.
geishas. It draws from different
Yes.
cultural nods into one new concept.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Baldwin plays Jane Cobb, who is our proto Amos of of Expanse.
In anticipation of this episode, we started rewatching Firefly again.
Ambassador. There you go, Javan shares.
And then what's this? But yeah, because and I love the Expanse,
Mhm.
and we enjoy Amos as a character, and that's a whole other discussion.
Mhm.
But yeah, Jane and Amos share a similar DNA structure as characters go.
Mhm.
They're the muscle, they're the mercenary,
They're
they're the
somewhat
thug.
psychotic.
Yeah,
They have a twisted sense of
priorities
Yeah.
of everything of
Yeah.
how they view the world. So things like that.
yeah. Jewel State plays Kaylee Fry, who is the I guess you could say the engineer, the mechanic. I'm not sure which is the better term. Who's also always seeing the world with color, with joy, with happiness, even if it starts getting dark.
Hmm.
She's the character who is beloved by many because of the fact that she is the non-fighter in the group,
Yes.
and she is head over heels over um, Dr. Simon Tam, who is played by is this Sean? Scene.
I would say Sean Mayer.
Sean Mayer. Um,
Could be wrong.
he, I guess you could say he's the show's hottie, at least as far as I know. Some friends have always referred to him.
I can see that perspective. I mean, like he doesn't do it for me, but I see that
Yeah,
perspective.
because he's the clean-looking, handsome guy with a good body compared to the others who are a bit more gruff.
And he's a
rough.
doctor.
Yeah. Then you have River Tam, played by Summer Glau. This, I think, was one of the big roles for Summer Glau.
I feel like yeah, this is her breakout because
What is it her first role though?
I
No.
don't think it's her
Yeah, I'm thinking.
first, but I think it's one of her more notable ones before she went on to become the poster child for many genre
Mhm.
projects after that.
Later on, she becomes the Terminator, and she appears in Wu Assassins.
I didn't realize she was in with Assassins. That's interesting.
Yeah. So she was an angel. She was a prima ballerina in Angel. There you go.
Okay, okay. That's her as her first listed IMDb
Uh,
role.
and then I
Okay.
guess the last main character that we can't overlook is Ron Glass, who
I was
played
gonna say it's Saffron. No.
yeah, who played Shepherd Book, who is the mysterious preacher who
Shepherd. It's a Shepherd is a title.
yeah. So if you watch him knowing the show, you will notice something very interesting if you really watch him intently every episode.
Oh, we're gonna get into that, huh?
And yes, I will tell everyone now this is a spoiler filled show. So when we talk about the series, expect us to talk about the episodes.
I mean, okay, the because the challenge is this thing came out in the early 2000s. There are only 13 episodes of television to watch.
Yes.
You can binge the people binge that amount of TV in a weekend now. And then um and because there's nothing else to talk about,
Hmm.
then you end up dissecting only these 13 episodes. So it's hard to have, at this point, it's hard to have a Firefly discussion without getting into spoilers
Hmm.
because um, a lot of the best things about the show will inevitably become callbacks to very specific moments in the show. So you've been warned. Sorry. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Okay.
So basic premise of the show, this is years in the future after Earth that was. The Alliance pretty much controls the systems, and you have everything under the main part of the galaxy with the white sun, and that's where the Alliance has the most control. That's where the richer planets are.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the frontier, the outskirts,
The outer
which is
ring.
the outer ring planets, and that's where you have a lot of the smugglers and unsavory types doing odd jobs because a lot of the planets outside do not get the full assistance of the Alliance.
I mean, like in Star Wars terms, it's like the core versus the outer rim.
Mhm.
If it's like even just classic American West, it's the East versus the West. Basically, the more developed portion and the less developed
Mhm.
frontier. And that's your classic Western structure.
And with that as the basic or the basis of the setting, we then have to add the other elements. So we have the reavers, who are normally in the outer skirts, people who've gone crazy and still fly their ships, cannibalizing other people and ships
It's
they
such
come
a
across.
strange concept, but yes,
Mhm.
that those are our reavers.
But at the same time, you have now the grand conspiracy. The show eventually identifies them as Blue Sun and other terms. I shall just use Blue Sun as the most prominent one because it's a major corporation that's involved in certain strange experimentation. The stuff and the likes of which River Tam was subject to.
Yeah, and this is obviously like a major meta plot moment that had the show been given more time to develop, then
They could have
we would have
explored
seen a
more.
lot more. And instead, it's like I think we just got the barest hints and introductions to what was going on, and
Mhm.
then the rest kind of get filled out in other media.
Yeah. Forgot to have it out. Spoiler shark!
We're so out of practice. We don't
Yeah,
have the
I know,
sharks.
I know, I know. Okay, so where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the actors, the characters? Do you want to start with the episodes?
I don't know. I think I guess the one thing to note is that they are a crew in the sense that they travel
Mm-hmm.
together, but they're not a crew in the sense that they are enlisted personnel serving
Yes.
very specific roles on a ship.
Yes.
I mean, by right, the actual like if you think about crew as just people who work the ship, then you're probably stuck with Mal, with Zoe, with
Mm-hmm.
Wash, and to some degree, and then Jane and Kaylee. But then
Mm-hmm.
even Jane is like a little tertiary.
Yeah.
And then technically, Book, Simon, and later River are passengers.
Who ended up staying as crew.
Yeah, who end up like helping along. And then as much as Simon is a doctor, he's not like the official
Mhm.
ship's doctor, but he is a passenger who happens to be a doctor. And it's just fascinating how that happened because I know like was this as the show progresses, even midway, I was like, as our midway of our rewatching this week, I was already asking like, you know, Book could have left anytime
Mhm.
because he had no major reason to stay.
But that's the thing.
But that's
That's the
at least
thing.
in terms of what is presented in the
That's the
show, he
thing.
had no logical reason to stay on the ship because
Okay.
at least Simon and River were on the run and were
Mm.
fugitives, so it made sense for them to be there.
Now, the other interesting thing about the show is that it does not have a clearly defined antagonist. In most shows, you would have recurring faces of the bad guys and the like. And while here they did have the Hands of Blue guys, they only really appeared much later in the show. A lot of the episodes had them involved with lots of unsavory folks. And whether or not those people would have reappearances later was such a treat because it did make you feel like this was just one verse they were all part of.
Yeah, I mean, like if you just go to like the first episode, you are already introduced to a number of interesting like personalities that
Mhm.
stand out. So you have characters like uh,
Badger,
Badger and mentions of Niska, and then
Niska.
Patience also, and these stand out more to me now only because
Mhm.
the Firefly the game made them very prominent because they're the ones who give out deals because they're like the little leaders of their respective areas, fiefdoms, whatever spheres of influence, but not antagonists per se.
Mm-mm.
Because then it's like you're constantly juggling, like, I may burn my reputation with this one person now to favor the other, and then flip and things like that. So a lot of balancing. Yeah. So yeah. So it was it begins very true episodic, very very we just go as they will, but um like Discworld, and I'm sorry I'm going to use that reference, is that because Discworld novels, each novel stands on its own,
Mhm.
but there is a recommended reading order because you want to understand things in the sequence that they happen. The characters go through certain developments and it makes more sense that way. So Firefly now probably benefits a lot from the binge watching era where then you can really see things in sequence and like just sit through it and see what happens.
Now, beyond the TV series, which was cut sadly short, there was the movie. The movie came out with the clamor of fans wanting more, but just as that documentary told us earlier, it was a
We were
mixed
watching
bag
something,
of
yeah.
trying to gain new fans, but at the same time rely on a lot of information from those who've seen the series. So it was a very difficult movie to really appreciate without knowing the TV series behind it.
And confusingly called Serenity. While again, it's one of those, then the fans would know it's still connected to Firefly
Mm.
because it is the name of the ship. Firefly is the class of the ship. Um, but to help new people like download that, oh, this is related to a TV series, you wouldn't get that right away. And it's one of those elements that always make it feel like so much about Firefly and Serenity and the franchise as a whole was like set up to fail. And we'll get into that more later on.
Now, beyond the movie and the series, there were also a number of comics that were released between 2005 to 2017. These include Serenity, Those Left Behind, which was a 2005 miniseries, Serenity Better Days, which was a 2008 miniseries, Serenity Leaves on the Wind, a 2014 miniseries. And as of currently, there is a Firefly series that I think is still ongoing that started in 2018. The first few books, which are under Serenity, were released by Dark Horse Comics, while the Firefly series is supposedly released by Boom Studios.
Yeah, Boom is a weird publishing group, but it's probably better known for things like the Adventure Time
Mhm.
books and stuff.
The
But yeah.
Firefly Boom series is seen as the canonical continuation of the TV series.
Mm. Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
and I'm like thinking of it. It still seems to be around.
Yeah,
Okay.
so just to go through real quick, Jovan corrected us that the term was outer rim. Of course, Clea mentions, I love rims. Maybe because you like racing cars. I will leave it at that.
Wow, so Butch
Uh,
man, bro, yay.
because Drag Race. Um,
Oh yeah, see, look, Firefly issue 33 was just published in August 27th.
mhm.
So yeah, it's still an ongoing show. Oh, and it's Greg Pak now. Huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
Clea also mentions River Tam feels like Buffy in the series. It's true because there are, um, I guess you could say it's a very Joss Whedon thing to have your broken, amazingly deadly, somewhat disconnected female character. Whether
Okay.
it's in Buffy, Dollhouse, Firefly, and other material that he has worked on.
Yeah, he has a bit of a pattern, and I know.
That is a
I mean, now we can reinterpret a lot of what Josh Whedon has done in a very negative light, and that's a whole separate conversation. So,
Mhm.
yeah, but let's still like focus on what we like about the show.
So let's go to the characters. Um, let's start with Mal. Mal as a main character in the show. He's annoying. He's domineering. He's crass, but he's loyal. And
He's crass, but then oddly charming also at
mhm,
times, depending on the situation. And then I just love how from the very beginning you can feel the weight of the history
mhm,
around him and the brown coats, and
yeah,
the relationship between him and Zoe extend beyond them being like working on a ship
yeah,
together. You know that there is I mean, at least the way it was portrayed, you
mhm.
know from the get go that there's a lot has happened between the two, and they just work together.
I
And it,
feel I feel it was a nice capture of how a captain of a ship would be.
mm,
Wherein you don't have to be liked, but you're the one who has to make sure everyone does their job. And you'll bark orders, you'll do this and that. You'll be able to charm your way into ports and security and the like. So I think that was a nice thing that Joss Whedon drew from in creating Mal's character. That it was a ship captain, but then at the same time with a cowboy persona.
mm, mm, yeah, and and then Nathan Fillion was a very great
Hmm.
choice, and then we've seen him go on to play a number of interesting roles since
Could have been
then.
an Uncharted. Yeah,
Do you have more to get off your chest?
Nathan Drake, Nathan Fillion. Seriously,
Not a child. Okay. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, definitely he carried a lot of the show, and
hmm
then I mean, I feel like a lot of the love for the show will go back to him. I hope he doesn't walk around with like a lot of the blame, because I don't think it's a blame question. I mean, the reasons that Firefly didn't last long are many and complex,
hmm
and mostly outside of, I think, the production's
and I
control.
don't blame him if he doesn't want to go back to it because it's been
It's been
years. It's been
years.
years, and admittedly, if we do go back to it as a show, and I mean a live action show, it just won't be the same because they're too old.
Mm-mm. It's gonna. I
It
mean,
it's
if
going to
we
be like that Bill and Ted movie where they're going to introduce a new generation of actors who will somehow strive to be the original group, but not, and expect us to buy
that
it.
was a little too literal the way they tried to
But
do
you get
it.
what I
So that
mean,
was just
right?
that
It's
was a
there's
bad
no
movie.
way a new live action show will work.
Yeah.
And if they say let's jump it into the future and it's 20 years later the same cast of characters, then it feels very odd that after all these 20 years River and Simon are still in that same problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So
there's
you
no
can't really
way.
continue the story.
Yeah, the only way it could work is an animated series or something.
Mm, mm.
Because at least you can just have them doing voice
Well,
acting.
it's either an animated series or just a complete reboot, which
Yeah,
is gonna be painful for many. Like
yeah.
nobody wants to touch
Let's
it.
just hope M Night never grabs it. So, moving forward, why in the edge of the screen? Get closer, get closer. Okay.
Because your chair pushes me
Oh, I'm
away.
sorry.
It has an armrest
I'll
now.
remove the armrest.
Don't remove the armrest. It comes with the chair, so just work with it.
Zoe.
I love Zoe. I
Zoe.
super love Zoe. I love Gina Torres, and I
Yes.
and I think this is the show that really helped me fall in love with Gina Torres,
Mhm.
wherever she would appear later on. Like, she is the main reason I watched Suits.
Yes, I was about to say in that lawyer thing.
That lawyer thing was Suits, and I mean
You don't see her as her character in Suits. You see her as Zoe as a
Zoe
lawyer.
as a lawyer, which is still equally scary because
Mhm.
she's quite intense in that show,
Mhm.
and
I
I
love how it's not a blind loyalty. I love how it's a very
yes.
meaningful one. And I love how it's a damn good marriage. Her her marriage to Wash, of course we're just talking about less than a season, but it's one of the few marriages we've seen in genre television that doesn't seem so twisted.
And it's not we don't catch them at the head over heels fall in
Mm.
love point. It's the they're married, they're already together,
They're very
they're
comfortable with
very
each other.
comfortable. So Clea says that also likes Inara Sarah as a powerful courtesan. Jovan shares that Zoe is Mal's anchor of sorts, the
Yes.
logic behind the crazy, and that's true. She is,
Yes.
and man, there are a few cooler than Zoe. I mean, like she just runs like a Terminator
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. Get things done. Okay. Uh
Wash.
I love Wash. I do. And like and
Did you love him the moment he had the dinosaur moment, or did you love him later
um I mean like to be fair, like on the surface, he's quite the hick character.
on?
Uh not hit, hick. And yeah, I mean like classic dinosaurs really narrowed it down for me. Um but I think it's like even moments like what's this? There's a moment where they scare Simon that a character has died,
Mm-hmm.
and then they cut to this reaction shot on the bridge, and just his reaction of everyone's reactions was my favorite. And
Mm-hmm.
like little things like that about Wash, I love. So it was very disturbing because when you see him in Dollhouse, he's like this completely different character.
Which is, a testament to how great an actor he is.
Yeah, I mean Alan Tudyk is obviously like has moved on to become one of those like character actors that they
Mhm.
love to just throw crazy things at him. I mean, we've seen him do some very outlandish characters
I
over the
want
years
to see
in TV
him.
and movie.
I want to see him in an alien movie,
But what would his character be?
a new type of
Android?
yeah, a new
Okay.
type of android.
Okay.
I want to see him in Marvel.
But he has to get impaled at some point in the alien movie. Sorry, too soon, too soon. Come on, guys.
I want to
Okay.
see him in a Marvel movie.
Okay, who you want him to be in the Marvel movie?
I don't know, but I want him to be in a Marvel movie.
That's not helpful. You need to give him something.
Well, okay. Looking at him, who do you think he'd fit?
I don't know. We already have someone else doing Adam Warlock, but not that I think he would fit Adam Warlock. But um,
He
yeah,
could have been an Iceman.
maybe. But like older Omega level
Yeah.
Iceman, like fully
Okay,
aware of his
so let's move
powers.
forward to Inara. So I personally loved Inara. Um,
Obviously,
I
we always get into this.
I always loved how um, you know she talks her way out of situations, and my favorite is of course Inara against Saffron. Well, sorry, Mrs. Reynolds at that time. That you're
Well,
good.
she was Saffron.
Yeah, you're amazing.
No, no, but that the you're good. The build up for that was just fantastic because it was this long,
Drawn out.
drawn out seduction
Yes,
counter. It was
it was,
social combat.
and it
It
was
was
so well done.
from a role playing game perspective. It was social combat. It was high stakes, and you're wondering, oh my god, is she falling for it? Oh my god, is she pulling
Mhm.
Kate? Pushing. Is she pulling Saffron in? And then in the end, because
They
alarms
both
start
and
ringing.
because they both have training, they could read each other that they were both trying to play each other, and
Yes.
that was so good. Um, um, her other aspects of learning later the oh, no actually earlier it's an earlier episode that she knows how to use the sword. Learning that when the reavers were a possibility, she already had this little container ready with poison. It's
Well, with a syringe, like we have not officially declared the reason for.
Yeah, but
But
it,
yeah, we
it,
know what
it
it
just
is.
tells you that this is again another strong woman who knows her shit, who's not afraid to do what's necessary.
I mean, if she were oh my god, a leverage character.
Oh, she'd like give a run for the money on
because she's not just the social character. To some degree, she's a mastermind in her own right.
No, I'd make her the no, I'd make her the bruiser,
What?
the social character bruiser.
Ah, okay.
Should be
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
mix of both.
Oh my god. Sure. Okay.
Jovan, of course, mentions Yosaf Bridge. So, speaking of saffron, real quick, um, in the Flux game,
Uh,
you can only have one of those cards out. So, when another card comes out, the one
yeah.
you have
There's
is gone.
Yolanda, Saffron,
And
and
Mrs. Reynolds. Yeah,
Bridget.
I think Bridget,
Okay.
right? In Firefly, the game, there's a similar system.
Yeah, that you can recruit. I recruited. Who did I recruit? I recruited Yolanda.
Yeah,
But if her other incarnations are hired, I lose mine.
because she's actually in that ship. So I love that system exists through across the different
I
games.
love the fact that across 13 episodes, we managed to bring her back enough to like have this plot
Yeah,
element come
and
around.
she's such a great
Such a
character.
good character.
She's if Inara was evil. Yeah,
Essentially,
that's
yes.
precisely it. And the fact that Mal still falls for her, it just shows you Mal has a type, and Inara and Saffron kinda are in that same area, which is strong women who are not afraid to do what they want. Um, okay, Jane. Other than being Proto Amos,
I still like Amos more though.
true. I think what I like about Jane is he's his relationship with his guns, Vera and the others. Um, it's nice seeing the concept of a barbarian type of character. The one who'll just fight, the one who just says, "I want to get the money, the glory, and then I just want to fight." That sort of a concept to see it on TV in a way that works.
Mm.
Because you could say that Jane's almost a caricature, but it's not. There's still some reality behind the characterization.
Janetown.
Town is one of the ones that really shows that the way he related to the mothers, the the song was amazing.
Um, and
I remember Javan had the hat.
and just there's a lot. With this, you can easily underestimate Jane because to be fair, many people can think
Mhm.
circles around Jane. I mean, he's obviously not the sharpest tool in the shed, but at the same time, um, his even though everything you know about him, you generally trust because he's already part of the crew that he'll fall in line. But there are still moments where his other instincts will shine through, and we've seen his mercenary nature
Mhm.
kind of pull through more, whether from the very beginning, how he first encounters the crew, first encounters Mal, and then later on. I actually I don't want to like dig into it, but there's that other episode.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool.
Kaylee.
Kaylee is just joy.
So Kaylee, with the unofficial first episode, because that was the official first episode, Stranger. Well,
Mhm.
sorry, the broadcast episode was Stranger, but the desired but unofficial
Is
first
Serenity.
episode is the one we saw, um, where she gets Book and River and Simon to become crew.
Yes.
You see her with her parasol, with her chair, inviting people to ride in the ship, and it's not even a hawking.
Yeah.
It's
It's not your jeepney trying to
yeah.
get people because there's still space.
It's that introduction for her personality was such a great way to do it. Later on, finding out how she got the job was hilarious
Mm.
because it again breaks convention or expectations. You're thinking someone that cheery, that doe-eyed would be also innocent, but no. Kaylee's a fully formed woman who, you
And
know,
then she's also not a tomboy. I mean, you
yes.
think that just because that she is the engineer, she is the most mechanically inclined. They also did make her a tomboy.
Mhm.
She is a woman who falls in love with very frilly, roughly dresses and all
Mhm.
these things. And yes, and then her quote unquote origin story of how she got on the ship also has her very feminine, so to
But
speak.
at the same time, they never dipped into the more anime approach, wherein if you have a female mechanic they'd either be very childish in the sense of cries over everything and you know is annoyingly demanding, irritatingly cute.
Hmm.
She had her cute moments, but they never went overboard. They never went caricature again. They always
Yeah.
still kept it in a realistic way.
And but she had that like very deep relationship with the ship,
Yes.
and like when things went wrong, she'd be like, I should have known sooner. I should have. Whenever
She
normally she
normally talks
tells
to
me,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
normally tells me when bad things are gonna happen or whatever. So it's like that was nice, and we see that in some of the best like engineer type
Mhm.
characters around. That sooner or later they start talking to their ships. Of course, I'm mainly coming from a Star Trek background where there's so many engineers who talk to their
Now
ships.
I love the fact that she was in Magicians.
Mm.
For those who watch Magicians, she's later Phyllis, and I think that's the second season, the third season.
I'm not good at picking out the season right off the bat.
Yeah. So I remember when I saw her there, I was like, "Oh my god, it's Kaylee," and she's so old now. But yeah,
It's been a while.
she was one of the. I think she was a headmaster, or one of the new headmasters. Um, Simon. Okay, how do we explain Simon? I think Simon is the type of character you will love to hate because you feel he's so out of his element.
That's true. I mean, and that's also part of like I never got the like
Appeal.
he the appeal because he's super annoying.
Well, the appeal is because he had a good body. A lot of people found him guapo with a lot of his shirtless moments.
He doesn't have a lot, but he does have some. But because he's layered in that stupid vest
Hmm.
all the time, then it's not
Well,
as
vests have
evident.
magic, and he was also cute when he was younger.
Wow. No. Okay. Because every time we watch that freaking flashback episode, Toby's like, "Hey, look, it's Zac Efron," and like, yes, you always point this out. It's Zac Efron playing young Simon Tam.
I did not know it was Zac Efron
It blows
until
his mind
much
every
later.
time. And but
It was
the much later counts when I first watched
it
Firefly with you,
it
and it's always
literally
like, you know who that is? You know who
no
that
no,
is?
but it literally was seen Firefly. Sometime later, saw High School Musical, and then sometime later, wait a minute, and then go back to Firefly. That is him. See, Mitch, really? It was Zac Efron? Yes! Simon as a kid complaining in very interestingly pronounced Mandarin
Mm.
to his father about needing that certain, I forgot what it was called, the device.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was Zac Efron, the non-muscular Zac Efron at that time, of course. So going back to Simon, his dedication to his sister, pretty good. His growing relationship to Kaylee, um, I like that more than how they already were in the movie.
But yeah, I mean, and it's that classic TV will they or won't they
Hmm.
kind of tension that plays out. That that I think it was a good effort.
Yeah,
So it made sense. It made sense.
and I loved how he was brilliant.
Hmm.
He just was also very scared.
Yeah.
So his brilliance gets overshadowed by that. When the gunfights happen, he's starting to panic. When there's people after his sister, he starts to freak out. But then when he's in a moment, he can think, he can plan, he's brilliant. River. So I loved River's um, second layer of story.
Yeah. Cause
How a lot of things she does make sense once you understand or once you dig into the series more.
yeah, I mean, like River is the character that that makes you need to watch the whole series
Mhm.
again because yeah, almost everything. And it says in the beginning, it seems like at best she's delirium from Sandman.
Mhm.
Doesn't make sense. You expect her to talk to flying fish, but then later on, it's like, oh, the things that trigger her, the things that make her upset, totally make sense.
And the things she did, you start to connect why. A lot of them is still speculation online,
Mm.
but other things are inherently there if you know where to look. And I like the fact that the show didn't like super force you to notice it.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like super zoom focus.
Yes.
Hey, look at this. Something's happening. No,
Yes.
it was none of that. It was none of that.
What else about River? Movie, hands down. I love the escape. I love the hanging on the ceiling moment. That was
Mm.
beautifully done for me. I loved it visually because it just felt very different. Um, in the actual series, I liked how she she really had that processing expression.
Ah, yeah.
You know, when she's looking at things and she's saying stuff that sound like nonsense, but then you could see the way she looks. It's like connecting
It's why
things
she
in a
moved
scene.
on to play a robot.
It's very well done. I did not like her in Terminator.
Yeah, I know. Because they made her super flat. So then she didn't have nuance,
Yeah,
right?
and
Because
worse,
because
her.
because as much as River has a lot of like almost kind of robotic weird
Mm,
moments, but it was tempered by the childlike moments. The she's still
mm,
Simon's sister. She's still
mm.
a person. So they didn't quite achieve that in that was Sarah Connor Chronicles, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
and then I'm sorry, but the movie poster was terrible.
the, the martial arts
The
pose.
martial arts pose in the mini skirt, no, just no,
Oh well.
no. Okay, moving forward to Shepherd Daryl book.
Yeah, book is was this definitely a character that I we didn't get to fully develop in the course of the show.
Hmm.
But you could sense again the history, there's a lot going on. The things he knows, the people he knows,
Yes,
his obvious military background despite being a
a
shepherd.
lot of the backstory is better hinted at. I still use the word hinted at in the comic books
Mm.
that came out after. Jovan mentions the escape as a continuity error. Yes, because as mentioned, the movie did try to reboot the series, but still relied on you knowing the TV series to embrace it.
It was a continuation but a reboot.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense.
And it was never fully either.
It really did not make sense, and that's the frustrating thing about it. I would have accepted it if the the intro of the movie was just a report and not recorded video.
Mm.
Then we could say, oh, the narrator was wrong. Maybe he remembered it wrong, or maybe he's remembering false memories.
Mm.
But since they made it, it was footage captured. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah. Going back to book though, um, his hair,
It,
brilliant joke of a moment.
brilliant. It just came out of nowhere.
But the brilliance of that is how it affects Zoe for me. Not
Mm.
River. The River moment is hilarious because you know it's coming. But then when Zoe sees it and it's oh, it's not. We're putting the hair away. It doesn't matter.
And it's like
It's
had
still
if
there,
I didn't have things to
waiting.
do, I'd be in there with her. I would be with River. So yeah, yeah, good stuff.
um, I feel Book was super underused, which is sad. But then I think
And I
it's
feel that
because
both TV and movie, like
I feel he would have had more growth really in the long term. Parang he's the type of character you want to have a big reveal by season 3.
yeah, yeah, it's a very slow burn.
Mm-mm.
Like there's because you want to unpack what's behind it. I mean, just little things like when he needed
Medical
a
assistance.
critical medical
Yeah.
situation, and yet he, despite everything else, he got the support he needed
Mm-mm.
on the value of his name. I guess you could
And
say.
then some viewers, I know a lot of friends did mention how there were very notable similarities to an assassin in the latter part of the show, Jubal Early, that sort of
Mm.
remind you of Book in certain ways. And but yeah, the comics nicely give you a glimpse of what Book story could have been. We should try looking into that ongoing series just so
Yeah,
we're
I
more.
haven't like I should I'll add it to my comicsology wish list, and if it goes on sale, I'll pick it up.
Okay, so let's now quickly go to support characters. Adelaide Niska, loved him as a villain. Um, Niska, your reputation and this and that. Now, not just talk. Um, um, Such a brilliantly written villain for such brief amount of time
Yes.
that you get why he would have that type of reputation. but then at the same time so flawed because he still hires such typical goons.
That's true.
So
Like if you thought he was like really this big mastermind, then he
yeah,
would have the best
it's
people.
just that he's super ruthless.
Yes.
Um, becomes such a brilliant villain for that later return episode when Wash and um, Mal are held captive.
Mm, mm.
Um, you you really found that worth it when you if you connect it to the series that way. Badger, I think it's because of his appearance here that I've never trusted him in any other show I've seen him.
So it didn't help when you see him later on in
In
like
Doctor
BS. Oh,
Who
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
in
Oh, Doctor
Battlestar
Who. And
Galactica.
Doctor Who, he was like a good guy, so to speak, right? Because he was like FBI,
But you're
CIA.
thinking he's the master or something, and then in Battlestar Galactica he's the lawyer, and you
To be
laugh.
fair, he was a very sleazy lawyer.
There's no way now to see him as a good guy after playing Badger because it was so well done too.
But at the same time, Badger is such a like 2-bit. I mean, like he thinks he's like this
He,
boss,
he
but
thinks
he's
he's bigger than
not.
he
He's
is.
not that big a crime personality, but
Mhm.
he carries himself that way. And maybe at least in his neck of the woods, he is prominent-ish, but still not the same. So yeah, funny.
Oh, this is by episode. That's why I don't see it.
Yeah,
Strange job.
it's difficult to go through trying to pull everyone. So
Okay, so
I guess well,
episodes,
let's like then let's talk about I guess episodes you. It's even
key
hard to do
episodes.
episodes you like, but because there's so
I
many
mean, we
good
could just
stuff.
jump through them.
Okay, okay, okay.
Train Job was supposed to be the sorry, Train Job was the
Broadcast.
broadcast first episode, but for people who encountered the show later on, whether it's because of information online or whether it's because of the way they encountered it, this becomes episode two, and most see um, the first episode as
The first episode is Serenity. I think it's the
yeah,
last
sir,
one of the last broadcast episodes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So um, we encountered the crew, gathering people. We had them do a job. Things go south. We had them do another alternate angle. Things still go south, and it really sets the tone of what the show will be. We're in. These aren't your usual heroes. They aren't gonna get things right, and it really does give you the Wild West feel of, all bets are off when you're doing these jobs, right? You also get the feel that it's an ongoing story and not just an initial story from the onset, because you already feel the characters have backstories, even if you aren't really told them yet. But the first time you see Inara relate to Mal, you already can say, okay, these two have not liked each other for a long time. But for some reason, you could already sense there's something there,
Hmm.
right? Seeing Kaylee just adore Inara, missing her so much, tells you that they've been around long as well. Um, her wanting to understand that life and all this and that. I think Wash had um, the least moments in that episode, save for his laughter moment.
Hmm.
But like beyond that, he wasn't. I mean, even if he had those piloting moments in the episode, they weren't key character
Yeah,
moments.
yeah. I mean, and there's only so much
You can fit in.
time. Yeah, and
Mhm.
then they tried to you could feel the episodes try to build and like let's do spotlight for this character, and all these things.
Mhm.
Um, so broadcast order is Serenity and then Train Job and then Bush. To be fair, like Bushwhacked, I'm like okay. I mean, nothing. It didn't. It was. It's. There are some interesting reveals, but then it's not like one of my favorites. Shindig, um, I think was interesting mainly for revealing more of the dynamic between Mal and
Mm.
Inara, and then sort of like unspokenness. But then, like as a story, it's still like very bottle. Like
Yeah.
it just happens. Um, um, Safe is another one of those, again, like I feel like
Excuse me.
stuff happens, but the most interesting thing was the thing about book.
Safe was a world building episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Safe was showing you that despite this being a future world, there still are old superstitions. Um, there still are um, those weird moments. And then I'm not even sure. I mean, the books moment was a hint of things to come,
Yeah.
but even that wasn't huge.
Yeah, it was
Because
very
if
subtle.
because if it was a huge thing, it would be the focus of the episode. That so why do they know you, book? What's going on? No, they didn't even have that. It was just a
Because to be fair, like there's a and as the nature of the crew, there's a lot of, you kind of understand that everybody has history, but then they also kind of just respect their working relationship,
yeah,
that they don't dig into each other's
yes,
history, that there's better off not asking these
and
questions.
that's part of what the show really establishes. When you watch shows like Quantico and the like, they super stress.
They gotta
What are you
spell
not
everything
telling me?
out.
Diba? Why are you
Why
again?
Quantico as an
But
example?
there's always the
Quantico is like, I want to grow up to be Homeland,
the
but I never do.
secrets of the characters were a big plot element.
Yes, yes.
Here, it just shows you, okay, he has a secret. We all have secrets. So, they don't want to rock the boat. And they didn't have to say it that way. You
Yeah,
just
yeah.
understood it from the way the personalities were there.
Then of course our Mrs. Reynolds.
So, our Mrs.
I love
Reynolds,
our Mrs.
um,
Reynolds. We just, because like one of the last ones we watched this
it,
rewatched this weekend. Oh my god,
okay,
it never stops being good.
what I love about our Mrs. Reynolds is it really catches you off guard. When the
Super.
show starts, you don't think that's where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
You think it's okay, it's another town. Okay, they're surrounded na naman with people. So you're like thinking, oh, is this gonna be like safe? Na they're weird. Is this gonna be ganyan? And then they're
The
leaving
the
na.
town is not the
Diba? They're
story.
leaving na
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, wait, so why did we have all that build up on the town? And then boom, we find out married. And oh my gosh, that's such a build up for that story.
And the dialogue they wrote for Saffron all throughout. I mean, her individual interactions with the different
Mm.
characters, sheer poetry. Like
Mm.
absolutely, I can understand. It's almost hypnotic.
Mm-mm.
The way that she crafts things around, and
Mm-mm.
I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so there's that, and then the next one was in terms of like story sequence is Janestown, and of course Javan mentions it's her favorite.
Mm-mm.
Janestown's brilliant, and at first it's like on the surface, Jane gets an episode. I mean, like you could just say the synopsis is
Yeah.
Jane gets an episode, but the way the episode is done,
The backstory of the episode is amazing.
ah,
The even the pacing of with Jane back, the mayor could have just waltzed in and be no, we're not
I
gonna have that.
I
We're
even
gonna
go
have
back
him.
further.
We're gonna go have him to this box to open a box, and it's a still build up after build
No,
up.
because even just the initial setup of the episode. When do we first see Jane in this episode?
Mhm.
We see him because he's wrecked the infirmary because he just wanted some tape. And it's such a reminder how brutish he
Mhm.
is. And um and and then we get to the planet, and then there's this whole other story. And yes, Javan mentioned Simon cusses for the first time, which was nicely, I mean, was a punchline because there was a build up earlier where they were her and him and Kaylee were talking about
Mhm.
him needing to swear more and
Mhm.
stuff. And so it all these things, there's just so much love about Jamestown. It's just a very very smart episode.
And then the kid who dies.
Oh yeah, who's the kid who dies?
That was this one, right?
I'm not sure. You have to pull
Fess.
up
No,
the.
no, no. Um,
Ah,
the kid who dies. Was it this one? Look, he looks older now.
well, they are all
Yeah, this looks
older.
like him. Look, the eyes look like him.
Oh my god, is that him?
I think that was him, the mother,
Please help us. Who is the kid
Daniel
who dies?
Bess.
Okay, after. Uh, Just checking the character names, we get the right. Yeah, but a mother jumps in front of Jane and is killed.
Oh, yeah. So that's Daniel Best. So, yeah, he's older than that. So first time I watched this, I kept thinking, oh, did they get that guy from X Men and I know who always keeps dying, Marston, um,
Wow.
because he kind of had that look,
Wow.
right, with his pretty eyes.
I guess. And it's all very more minor roles in other things. He had a recurring Cole role in Veronica Mars across 2 episodes, but things like that. So okay, okay. But yeah, it was such a. I mean, like, there's a lot more I want to talk about in Jamestown, but
Brilliant
okay.
song, hilarious lines. Um, then we have Out of Gas, which is one of the most
I
powerful
super, I
episodes.
super love Autogas.
If
I mean, it's so stereotypical, but I super love Autogas.
if uh, see, now it's terrible. I can't remember the name. If the Weeping Angels episode,
Blink.
yeah, there. If Blink is the Doctor Who episode, like if I wanted someone to check out Doctor Who, it'll be Blink. Firefly, I feel Out of Gas would be the episode I will end up talking to them about after they've seen it.
And
Kumbaga parang
Out of Gas, had the series ended on Out of Gas,
it would have,
I
yeah,
wouldn't have been angry.
it would have been a good way to
It's
end
such
the
a good,
series.
episode. Such a good episode. And it's funny because it's a good episode where he's like on the brink of survival, whatever, because they're out of gas, essentially.
Mm.
But then it's a time when I'll flash back to the beginnings of everything.
Yeah, and it's such a brilliant way to do it because it did feel like the show's ending because we're seeing the beginning.
Yeah.
So
But I have to say this. This thing has traumatized me. I was telling Toby the other day. Like, so when we play Firefly the game, fuel is an element in the game. You need to have fuel for your ship. I hoard fuel. Half my cargo bay is fuel because I don't want an out of gas
I was the
situation.
one attacked by reverse, not you. So
Hey, not my fault.
um,
You flying in the outer. I stuck to alliance space.
and then Out of Gas, brilliant writing again. The way the lines would connect to the characters, the way certain phrases would be mentioned, the way, I mean, even that encounter with the other ship. You would have done the same
Mm.
thing, and you realize an earlier Mal would have done the same thing.
Yes.
So it such a brilliant piece of writing. Okay, Shindig.
Shindig was quaint, but again, I felt I didn't like. I mean, I'm okay with it. They're not bad episodes. It's just like I feel like not as much that I will write home about.
My problem with Shindig is I don't see how he would have won.
Which actually went back on. But sige, Shindig. No, we talked about Shindig already. The duel.
Yeah,
Mm, mm.
I don't see how he would have won.
Okay, because after Out of Gas
Is
is
Ariel.
Ariel. Okay, which is the short term is
A heist.
Simon plans a heist.
Mm.
Simon plans a heist.
And it was our first glimpse of the Hands of Blue
Yeah.
beyond the initial glimpses. I
Mm.
mean, here we see them as in the story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the previous ones, it was mostly, I think, just
Motifs.
cutaways or
Yes.
something. Um, Ariel again is a moment where we see how Simon is actually more brilliant than we realize. Um, yeah.
And Jane is Jane.
Mhm.
Okay, so after that was War Stories, which was one of those that they really tried to examine. To some degree, it pokes at the relationship between Mal and Zoe.
If Ariel is the Simon show and Jamestown was the Jane show, War Stories was the Wash show.
Or at least tried to be. But then it wasn't his best moment also. I mean, like, I get it because he drives a lot of the story for, but it's not like the others where in a way they kind of walk away like this is my
Yeah.
awesome, because it had Wash out of his element. It had Wash doing something to prove himself,
Mhm.
which you know. Okay, the next is Trash, and it's automatically fun because it's saffron.
Mhm.
But then totally different. Totally different. Like what the hell? How is this the same woman?
Beautiful moment of reveal when you realize it's her. Um, really, very funny way to wrap up also the episode.
Yeah, yeah.
They were having so much fun with this episode.
Yeah, clearly, clearly. Okay, the next is the message, which is yeah, the guy. Okay.
I didn't like the message.
Mm.
I wasn't too keen on this episode. I felt
I mean, obviously, it was trying to be re-examine the war
mhm.
aspect thing, but the way this one was approached wasn't my favorite. Wasn't the greatest. It was okay. It made sense for the time. Then we're coming to the end. Heart of Gold. Bum, ba,
So
bum.
this is where the companion asks for help,
Yes, the former companion.
and we have the equivalent of a zombie film of people trying to break into the house and then protecting it.
Yeah.
So I didn't like this episode either. Not that it was bad. I just it wasn't as strong as the others.
Yeah, and and we're you can nitpicky at this point because we're well toward the end, and then yeah, then your last is objects in space,
So
where it's
that
already river time.
so Objects in Space I liked.
Mm.
It was very well written. Um, the villain was brilliant. Um, we had shades of again the suited up people outside of Serenity in order to try to do things.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, um, ah, we have some sad na naman that the show didn't push through. We really have to read that comic.
Okay, and then you get Serenity.
So the movie, the movie clearly enjoyed the fact that they had a bigger budget. We
Yes.
we had glimpses of the escape in such a um, I guess visually spectacle type of way compared to the original.
I just go back to we have never seen a more beautiful Serenity. I
Yeah.
mean, like just the takeoffs and landings
Mhm.
were like, yes, let's animate everything.
I don't dislike the escape, but I do feel it should have really been a false story
Mm. Or it's a
because
memory, so it's a unreliable narrator.
if River was already doing those weird freakish stunts, then Simon would be very different in the TV series.
Yes.
Diba? Because in the movie we had River, kulang na lang she was already fighting her way out.
Mm-mm.
So for Simon to be super protective, I don't get it. So that kind of irked me. It was brilliant though in the movie we're in. Escape, 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 and then freeze, and then passes through, and the guy's talking about how this happened. I love that moment. That was such a brilliant way
To show
to
it.
open
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I love Miranda. I love seeing how that planet works.
Ah, okay. Yes. I
Uh,
was like, I love Miranda too. She's hilarious.
um,
Cheeky.
the reverse scene um, was interesting,
Yeah.
but I feel it was too much.
I mean, that's already where it was like we need to. It was a movie moment. It
Yeah.
was like trying to be a movie moment. It wasn't necessarily a good story moment.
But even the the tortured attempts to close the door, I'll just leave it. I'll just describe it that way. Had moments of really that's what's happening after everything reverse done. We're suddenly back to we can't fight through this. So
Mm-mm.
that annoyed me. That felt out of place.
Internal consistency wasn't great
Mhm.
in that regard. How did you feel about our very eloquent later cross-dressing villain?
I don't know.
The operative, yeah, that was his name.
Yeah, yeah.
Shit, I mean, I sorry, I say this because I'm sorry, I never mastered pronouncing his name. Sure, Chiwetel Ejiofor, but I first encountered him in Kinky Boots,
Yeah.
the non-musical Kinky Boots, and so later on, like they'll be like, the guy from Serenity. I'm like, yes, he's a drag queen here when I made him watch Kinky Boots. So it's a different introduction, and I mean, like, I
I
get.
hated Mr. Universe. I didn't feel the need for a Mr.
Oh yeah, that
Universe.
was stupid.
I felt like
That was stupid.
I felt like the Mr. Universe angle of the story could have just been someone in the cast. Parang we
Mm.
didn't need to introduce a whole new character to
Or
do
just
that angle of
or
the
just
story.
pull one of the existing,
Yeah.
like, whether it's Niska again or something. I don't
Mhm.
know, something like that, something like that.
So I'm a bit annoyed that there had to be a Mr. Universe.
Oh my God, Sarah Paul! I've forgotten that Sarah Paulson was in this movie.
Yeah, she was
What the
there.
hell? Okay. Um.
And then there's Mingo and Fanti, who I barely remember them in a good way.
So okay,
So the movie kills off two of the main characters, and
and it didn't necessarily feel super meaningful,
yeah,
especially with what they accomplished in the movie,
yeah,
which is not much.
I don't I felt they were shock value kills. I don't see why they were needed,
Essentially, they were fridged.
and they were powerful. They were moving. You felt the
But it
you felt the loss of the character, but that was because you love the characters.
and it's because you love them from the show. But then, like, if you take, because that's the challenge of the movie, like, because the movie supposed to was designed partly to stand
Mm,
on its own. But yeah, the a lot of the importance and value of the characters relied on the show. So
mhm.
it's this weird, like, seesaw, and like, what how am I supposed to feel? Um, so some of the deaths just felt very shock deaths.
Yeah, and then I think my last gripe with the movie was Book really just got shafted. That you didn't really feel there was anything for Book at all.
Mm.
So, in the few scenes where Book had something in the movie, you literally felt like you could have not have those scenes, and the movie still works.
Yeah. I wouldn't have minded
They
if Book just had a letter
Yung nga eh,
written to the crew.
parang they had no idea what to do with Book. Di sana wala na lang siya. And he was like, do you guys remember Book? Yeah, he used to ride with us. And then maybe there's a quick scene of Book waving goodbye to them. And, those were interesting stories being on your crew. Tapos, and kasi wala eh, even the later moments in the movie, parang you're gonna hint at this, but then you don't dwell on it. So, why did you have to do
We feel the pain. We know that there's so many stories about, like,
Mm.
the length of the movie was cut down, all these constraints, blah 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 blah. In the end, um, uh, I feel like they just tried to do a bit more than they could have in the span of a single movie, and then they just really should have. They needed to pick their lane and, like, who are you talking to? Is this a continuation of the show? Is it a standalone thing? Figure that out, And there's ways to do either, but trying to do both, uh, it suffered.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Anything interesting in the trivia section of this movie?
Just checking.
So beyond that, actually, because there's the comics. Although, like, I haven't fully explored the comics yet, whether the Dark Horse one or the Boom
Mm-hmm.
Studios ones. But uh, it's interesting how Firefly has had a slightly longer life in the gaming world.
Mm-hmm.
So um, we've played. There's more than one version of the RPG, right?
So the role playing game, first there was the Serenity RPG, because I feel like with the movie, I think there was a lot of attempts to
Reinforce. Hey, the name of the ship is
or to
Serenity.
squeeze the license.
Yeah, it's true because there was a movie.
Yeah. So the Serenity RPG game came out, and it was actually not bad. It was a nicely done RPG. It just had enough pulls from Fate and Fudge and its own systems. It used something closer to the Marvel Heroic games and the Cortex system, wherein um, you had the dice, the dice you roll changes in dice type as you get better.
Mm.
So you might have shooting at D6, but then as you advance it, it's D8 or gonna. But then it had something similar to Fate, wherein there were like keywords wherein you're the I can't remember the names right now. You're the coward, so you can't shoot and ganyan. So um, when the license was lost, I guess someone got the license anew and came up with the Firefly role playing game. And there are similarities, but there are differences as well to the systems. Um, it's safer to say they're two different systems,
Yeah, yeah.
but
They're
it's
just same
interesting.
setting.
But it's very interesting to see that it has had two systems.
Which is the one we played,
Serenity, the first
the
one.
first one. Which is that was like one of the first games we had story points.
Yeah.
Which is like if you play a lot of role playing games based on TV shows and other pre-existing franchises from other media, then you eventually come across story points, which is always the how do I make sure my character has stats that limit what he can do, but also has the awesome to be awesome outside of his stats,
Mhm.
and that's story points. Story points,
Yeah, so the
or
Serenity RPG was 2005,
mm,
set in the movie Serenity. So yeah, so that's the one we played, and then the Firefly. They're both Cortex. There you go. Yeah. So ito yung mga 1d4, 1d12 plus 4.
and it's like cute. I mean, like I don't mind dice systems that give you better use of your D20 sets, because like as much as I love D10s and games that give me many 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 D10s. I appreciate games that like let you play along. And then Javan's like the RPG was fun, yeah, and you got to play Kaylee in that one. I
Yeah.
think I remember that
And I
session.
remember I mixed it up with Doctor Who
Yeah, you gave us
because
a river
you
thing.
guys had the two rivers and the two doctors. Someone's looking for the doctor, thinking it was Simon. Someone's looking for River, thinking it was River. Then it turned out to be the doctor and a different River because there was the box, the cargo, which contained the mirror walls to keep the angel trapped. I like that. Oh, it's a good stuff.
Toby had fun. Toby had fun. Okay. And yeah, and that's we haven't played the Firefly
Yeah, the new
role playing
one.
game. We should probably
Well,
maybe next year it can
yeah.
be included in your 12 systems.
And then board game wise and card games. So you have Flux. You have
So okay, Flux Firefly is just if you play one Flux, you played them all. But I super love what they did in the treatment for Firefly Flux. They made the cards look old and
mm,
aged, you know, and the um, and then if you get the little expansions, so I got the expansions to get myself Saffron and Yolanda and the like. So you have these three characters and all that. So it's a lot of like ways to cram in a lot of story moments.
mm.
Hence you have Jane, and then his hat, and Vera has cards. I like how that came together. Uh, our first other game beyond that was the Legendary Encounters Firefly game,
Mm-mm.
which is a pretty okay legendary game, but I feel like they tried to tack on so many thematic
Yeah,
systems.
it was super ambitious because it had your legendary game wherein there's a deck of cards for each character, but then you had the stories for each episode.
And then
But
wait, and then
but then you had the ship.
and first you always had all characters in play, which was confusing. That
Mm,
there were the characters in the player deck that you could recruit, but then the other characters were also like powers that could
mm.
trigger, and they also get affected by events. It
But then you have negative and positive traits that kick in.
the was it the flaw in
Yeah.
the something system, and like it was very ambitious for like how thematic they wanted it to feel.
Mm-mm.
But really, what was kind of untenable was the art. I don't know what happened. Every time I think about that game, like what happened to this game with this art?
I
Because they
mean,
went with original art and not TV
and
stills.
the art is not like super horrible, but given Firefly, given people love the show, they'd love the art to make them remember the show.
Yeah, and
So
okay, and Legendary has like they started off with Marvel, so it's a lot of characters drawn in the Marvel style.
mhm,
When they did Alien and Predator, they also didn't go for movie stills. They went for original art based on the character, and that art's not bad.
because it sort of tried to like paint the scenes.
Yes, it copied the scenes. It had a very distinct look.
Firefly, I
It's not
guess
that
they wanted to redo the scenes and show it off in their own way.
I
So,
don't know.
and I know some of the artists were Filipino.
Really, not that that's a
Yeah,
an,
but
an
I know
inherent statement in itself.
there were some local artists who were part of the team that did the artwork. So I'm kind of, yeah,
I mean, like the character portraits were okay.
we're acceptable.
Those were like the best bits of art, but everything else was just rough,
Yeah.
rough. Especially the what was it called again? Oh my god, the strikes were terrible. The flaw and whatever system was terrible. I mean, the cards,
So
they just
I
bothered me
guess you
so
could
much.
say for the main character cards, we know they had budget. And then for the other cards, we knew they cut corners.
Yeah.
Because it gets very impressionist style in terms of the art.
I just have to believe these are the characters. I like the addition of a ship. Uh, diba? It's
The
like,
art is terrible. Okay. Beyond, however, Legendary Encounters and Flux, um, there's the Firefly, the game that we got secondhand,
which we talked about on Monday.
and it's such a brilliant game despite it
It's
being slow.
I think we're gonna play it again this weekend.
And then beyond those games, so many other games that it's crazy. Okay, so I'll go through it by title, by full title. I'll skip this because I don't know the full title. Um, Here, so there's Bois. It's an expansion, eh. So Bois can't big something. I don't know. Uh, Sample cards. Bois Those Left Behind is the name of the game. Um, Based on the Dark Horse miniseries. See,
Okay.
but there's Clue Firefly Edition. I'm tempted to find
I'm
it.
sure it's just a reskin of Clue.
Yeah, but I
But
mean, but if the board is the Firefly, is the Serenity? If we're running around the Serenity as the house,
Okay.
it was Jane in the. I want that. Okay, there's Firefly Adventures, Brigands and Browncoats, which, if I remember correctly, is sort of like a yeah, mini shootout sort of thing. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's got scenarios and stuff wherein you try to handle tactical activities. Then you have, oops, where did it go? There. Um, Firefly Big Damn Heroes. Um, this was a 2 to 7 player game. It's a print and play type of chits game.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Look at the pieces. It's very tiny.
Um,
Yeah, there's Firefly Flux.
Firefly
Yay.
Gin, Firefly Fistful of Credits. Um, so this was a 2 to 4
It's a
cooperative
dice
game.
game.
Yeah, where you try to accomplish things. Okay.
A little rough. A little rough.
Firefly Out to the Black, 3 to 5 player game, cooperative card game where you take jobs and the like. So there was a lot of attempts to really capture that nature of the story. Firefly Shiny Dice. Um, I think tall cards were just an expansion for this one. And then we have, where is that? I know there's one more. Um, Goram Reavers, Heartburn, Keep Flying, Monopoly Firefly.
Monopoly.
Yeah. So yeah, for a show that some feel was not that popular, barely having a season, it still got a lot of love when it came to new
I
media.
mean, it has a very strong cult following. There's a very strong community around it, and that's sort of why the tabletop gaming industry got to embrace it, because then you have, a pretty loyal, rabid fan base, who are going to want to be able to play out and make their own Firefly
Mhm.
stories, and games are a great way to do that.
I want a worker placement Firefly game
Why worker placement?
just to show, the crew running around doing stuff.
I don't know. I don't know. Only because, okay, because the work. I mean, because each crew taking worker actions.
Hmm.
I don't know,
And
because
then maybe the worker spaces are like the different planets. You go to Ariel, you go to ganyan ganyan
I guess my thing is that, because since I never view the Serenity crew
separately.
as a crew, like a
Mhm.
military crew, then it doesn't make sense for them to be
Unless you're different
doing jobs.
factions. So I'm the
Yung
Hands of
nga, so
Blue,
then
you're
it's
the
gonna be like,
crew.
yeah, there's gonna be patience
Yeah.
and Niskra and
And then
stuff.
it becomes this
You're off camera.
it becomes that interesting attempt to move around and do stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, and that's sort of like that's the conceit we have with Firefly the game,
It
where
really
you
nicely.
you are no, you're just all Firefly captains.
Yeah.
You're all captains of different Firefly ships, with whatever names, and then you have an opportunity to recruit people. So, like in my game, I was happy I was able to get Kaylee. Toby gambled on getting Simon and River, and it's a
With
gamble,
Mel. I was Mel.
and Mal was his leader because they are wanted
Yeah.
characters.
And then I have to roll whenever there's an
A,
encounter
a
for
skill test.
Simon to help River be useful.
Yes, because he rolls a die and then it determines what
River will do.
whether or not, yeah, what bonuses she'll
Yeah.
get, because so River's skill set was variable based on a dice table,
But
so
then
it was pretty
very
good.
early, with River and Simons, I was wanted na. I was an outlaw ship. But then all three of them are moral pa. So
That's
I
interesting.
couldn't do any job that was
I like that
immoral.
interpretation, although I didn't look at the Jane card. But like most of them were all moral characters.
Yeah.
The people who are on Serenity are moral. So both, uh, so Kaylee, Book, obviously, and like are all moral characters. And what that means in the game is that if you take immoral jobs, they get unhappy, which is like it's an interesting mechanic.
And I think that's what made the show really stand out for me. The fact that these were, in their very core, good people.
Yes,
They were thieves, they were
and
scoundrels,
Jane was a hero.
they were con men at some point, diba? But they, at their heart, were moral people. They're stealing medicine, they find out it's medicine, they give it back. They they grab this, but oh, they know because it's a government installation that'll be covered in the same moment. So it it makes sense. It's not even Robin Hooding, right? We're in, we steal from the rich to give it to the poor. It's, we're surviving too. But then kung may madadamay in our survival, stop. Let's not do this. And that's what I really liked about that show. It really had that aspect.
Yeah, so Javon mentioned Google Wave was based off Firefly sending a wave. Yeah, and a lot of things that we continue to say, like Toby will typically say that when he's resharing something,
Mm.
he's just boosting the signal
Hmm. That I
because,
hate Mr. Universe.
but it could just be like the direction that Mal was giving Wash to like boost the signal.
No, but that was a Mr. Universe thing, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was his shtick.
yeah, and then saying things are shiny.
Mm.
Um, it's nice.
I think Jovan still always mentions the shiny thing.
And I think if only like if and beyond Goram, like if I were like, and it's funny now
I'll
because
get the shirt.
Toby and I are studying Mandarin in Duolingo, then you think that we would get around to the swearing again, and that's fun. That's like that's I think that was an interesting aspect of like the world building behind Firefly. That Mandarin or Chinese was like a major galactic language,
Mm-hmm.
and like what that said about the culture and like how
Mm-hmm.
things develop, because there's still like they're still somehow tied to um Earth-based people. I just folded that shirt.
Mm-mm.
Oh well. um, our Firefly merchandise is limited, so like we also have this like Mal's dog tags.
Do you remember where we got those?
I cannot remember.
I sort of
I
recall.
remember it was an event or something.
Yeah, I sort of recall it was a convention.
Something like that.
And
Because we
then
wanted to get something and then we
the
got this.
yeah,
And it is item number 1161970, although I don't know out of how many.
yeah. But if you look carefully, it's I guess the dog tags.
Mm-mm. Implied to be the dog tags. Which,
Yeah.
sure, the circles. And it's in a, it's just a cigar box ish
Mm-mm.
thing. That
The
was cute.
tobacco smokes.
Jovan also has them birthday gift from Karen several years ago.
Mm.
Okay.
And then, brilliant soundtrack. Um, I remember using the music a lot. And in my Firefly RPG games, I had to be creative to find similar sounding tracks.
Mm.
So I had to look other movies and shows that had, that Western feel, but it's not pure Western. Eh. There was a sense of modernity and how the Western music was approached. It's not even bluegrass. It's like it's a very hard niche to find. So that was pretty cool. What
So
else?
StarCraft Terran music doesn't fit quite. It's
There,
close.
there were
But there are some
parts
tracks, right?
there
There's
were
some tracks
parts of
that work.
StarCraft that I used. I think what was the name of that show?
No, I think it's more like the new Mesa songs that could work a bit better. I'm staring at the Firefly comics now. There's a bit of a sale, but they're only 25% off. I try not to get things on Comixology until they're 50 off. I'm
Mhm.
terrible. So I'll think about it. I'll think about it. But the Boom, because Boom Studio has the license, they've also bundled the Dark Horse comics. So they call it the Legacy Editions. Adding to wish list. Anyway, what are you looking for in this song? Wow, and there's a lot. It's like this thing's been going on.
Yeah,
They have something on the. They
I'm
have a.
hoping it's gonna be fun enough that it reminds us of the show when
Though there's something. There's an extensive thing on the Unification War, and then it's Blue Sun Rising. Bum bum bum. Wah, 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 wah,
So there's
wah.
Bastion, StarCraft 2. Um, uh, folk rock. There you go. Jackie Brown. Uh, Fermata. Yeah, that was one of those I used. There
Okay.
was one more show specific. I can't remember the name right now.
So, um, then I guess thinking about then what's next? Like, okay, so number one, I think we're in the camp that we don't think. Well, I think it's pretty clear that Firefly is not going to come back as a live action TV show. Do you really want it to come back as like even as an animated series?
I think now knowing there is an ongoing comic, I'll be happy to check that out first
Okay.
because maybe they're carrying the stories well there.
Mm-hmm.
I was only really thinking of animated because I would love the cast to still be the voices,
Yes.
but I do not want them to be the older characters because nga, I don't see it working as older characters.
Yes.
I also don't want a new cast. I don't
So you don't want a reboot or a
know.
recast. Okay.
It was the crew that made it work. Eh. I wasn't enamored with the world. I was enamored with how the
That's
crew
true.
related to the world. And I know I'm speaking from a limited perspective because people can say that's how it was with Star Trek at first. We're in, the original show and then the spin-off show. I don't care. I want the original show. But then the later shows did have their own following, right?
No, but because since Firefly is so tied to this particular crew, even if you followed like the Star Trek
Mhm.
analogy, Star Trek's later iterations were completely different
Yeah, they had to
aspects of the
really,
universe.
and they still tried to gather some flavors, but it was a different show entirely.
Yeah, so it's tricky because nga, that because Firefly is so character driven and so tied to this particular
Mm-mm.
tied to the Serenity crew, and it's a lot harder to like think about who else would tell stories for us.
Or you go completely different, but still within the world. So, it would
Patience, the series,
something similar to how Star Wars has branched out with Rebels and the like,
Niska, Underworld,
or like maybe
The
um,
Adventures of
a
Saffron.
series of bounty hunters in the universe of
Ooh,
Firefly.
ooh, no, I could do an anthology series of just Saffron, and every episode title is is the name of her character in that episode.
Yeah, diba?
Like Saffron, Yolanda, and all that. And then, but it turns out she has even more identities. But it would just be her conning people over and over again.
Mm. It could be called Mrs. or something.
Mm.
Because you keep, and then maybe it's her, and then the only other character is the one chasing after her, who keeps missing where she is.
Ooh, ooh.
Hence, Mrs. And then every episode we figure out what will she be this time.
Yeah.
So maybe it's an episode she's a chef, and next episode she's an assassin, and the next episode she's a doctor, and the next episode.
Then congratulations, it's Dollhouse. Brief rejoinder on like things that happened after Firefly, I guess. So Dollhouse was one of the first big like Fox Whedon shows after, right? Dollhouse was Fox again, right? Yeah, it was. And we got into it. It was okay. It wasn't it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but
Mhm.
we
It
still
was
generally
intriguing.
it was intriguing. It had something going for it. So I guess there's that.
Yeah,
Um
Serenity, then a lot of small stuff, and then X-Men, and then Bella.
and then beyond that, oh, he wrote Cabin in the Woods.
It surprises me that Angel came after Firefly.
Not really. It just ended later. It started earlier but
Ah,
ended
okay, okay,
later. That's why the sequence is like that.
okay.
It ended later.
But there was still Angel basically while Firefly was running.
Yes.
That freaks me out. Okay. Um,
Kind of freaks me out that Angel happened. I didn't think he was great enough to deserve a spin-off. Because obviously I wanted Spike the spin-off. Okay. And then uh and then beyond that his last big like TV thing was Agents of Shield, which
mhm. And the Never.
was like hard to hard to get into. I mean, like it was you wanted to appreciate it as an MCU extension thing, but it was like the redheaded stepchild of the MCU. Like it never fully got to be a part of the universe, and it only played on the fringes. So it didn't quite get to its full potential. I feel,
Mhm.
I feel, and then the banter wasn't as strong. I, mean, I guess because it's not a strong enough team from Go. Um, whereas Firefly just worked so much better very early on. All right. Wow, this is already approaching the length of Fire of Serenity the movie. So, last things on the Firefly franchise.
I wouldn't mind an MMO.
An MMO, so you can be someone in the Firefly universe.
Yeah.
But you just said you're not enamored by the universe. What do you envision of this MMO?
Wala lang. Just I mean, if they can't have new material as a show,
Mm.
then just throw us the world and we'll make our own story.
Which is like what's happened with Star Trek Online.
Mm-mm.
And and I'm not a regular player, but I have a lifetime membership.
But you could
But when you
imagine,
go in and out, they're continually making new, like almost canon stories of what's going on in the Star Trek universe. And
but
that's exciting.
but can you imagine in an MMO, whenever you fly out, you're worried you'll bump into those ships. You do jobs here and there. You'll see some of the main characters.
You think would it be cool? You can also be. I can be Alliance.
Yeah,
I
why
can be
not?
in the Alliance hierarchy.
And then you're now chasing after other
And
ships
my
and
ship,
stuff.
my ship looks like a city for some reason.
Or you settle in some moon and start singing and drinking milk and stay in there, and that's it. You're happy now with that job.
Yeah, like recently I read this comment, this tweet by someone on Star Trek Twitter, and they're all like, they just started playing Star Trek Online, and like he's super gushing over the fact that he finally got to visit Deep Space Nine and just walked around the
Mhm.
station and had like a drink at the bar, and that's it. That so he's not even playing the story. He just went to Deep Space Nine.
Because I think what opens up as an opportunity for Firefly, if it had an MMO, is the fact that it doesn't have an underlying we have to do this before the world ends.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's no
I
progression
mean,
forward
Star
to
Trek
a
still
thing.
kind of had it. The Borg might show up or something like that. Because not even the Reavers were that big a threat.
They're just a thing that's out there that's dangerous.
Yeah, and if they come to the planet, it's trouble. But that only happens in the outer rim,
Hmm.
right? So, um, the game tuloy feels very sandboxy as a world we're in. Like,
Yeah.
sure, settle in the moon, you'll risk reverse. Diba? Or settle in the inner planets, but you're paying taxes and
I
all
just
this
want to
stuff.
go to Canton to see the lovely statues.
In that game, I would play a companion
Oh, okay. I see where we're going. Okay.
and I'd travel around.
I'd be Saffron. I wouldn't be a Lance. I'd be Saffron. I want to be Saffron and like
Con artist.
I want to con people. Yeah, yeah. That's totally what I want to do. Okay. Yeah. So yes, I think beyond this, just gonna explore the comics after this, and
Hmm.
if we get around to reading it, we shall report back on what we find if we can recommend it to fellow brown coats out there.
And if you do miss space based shows with a strong stellar cast, The Expanse is a good show to jump to. If you miss that sort of fun,
Oh, but like not perfect, but kind of related. But you might want to explore like lesser known shows also, like Killjoys.
mm,
Killjoys was this
yes,
Canadian science fiction
Killjoys.
series, which was like they were a bounty hunting crew.
Yeah,
Um,
on a ship.
so it's not quite Firefly, but kind of related feels. And then on the flip side, what was the other one? There was Killjoys, and I can't remember what the other one that came out at the same time. That was so there because Killjoys was the Mercs, but
Mhm.
then the other one was about the memory. Was it Dark Matter? I think it was Dark Matter.
Dark Matter, yeah. The
Yeah, yeah,
memory stories.
yeah. The everyone has lost their memories,
Yeah.
and then yeah. So which isn't quite the same feels,
Mhm.
but similar. Like interesting, different take on sci-fi to explore. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So but yeah, Killjoys. I think is a little closer.
And then I'd actually also still put in um, not Discovery, but the other Star Trek, the animated one,
Lower Decks.
Lower Decks, because it has that nice mix of um, the stories are there, but still you have the comical moments.
Mm.
You have the distinct character personalities. You have such a rich approach to the lore of the world, but it's never at the expense of the story. So if you miss tight writing
Yeah,
as
then Lower Decks.
a
Lower
sci-fi
Decks.
show, Lower Decks captures that really
Cerritos
well.
strong, everyone.
And I'm someone who doesn't know Star Trek so much. I'm still enjoying it so much when I'm watching it, even if I don't get all the references, because it's that smart in how it was written.
I get most of the
Mhm.
references, and then I'm always like squeeing beside
And I'm
Toby.
like, wait, that was a reference, right? Is that enough?
Oh, but yeah, and then going back, but and then yes, the Expanse though, because it's like many Belters are Jane, but then Amos is really Jane.
Malice of a Visceral.
No, he thinks he is. He's not that slick. Sadly, yeah, oh my god, he's almost a Holden, but Holden's still more annoying.
Yeah, Holden's not that.
Oh, here we go again with the Holden is not hot thing.
I mean, at this rate, Wash is hotter than Holden, especially in that quote unquote basketball scene.
Okay.
And that's already comparing to Holden, who was naked having sex in zero gravity. Sorry, Holden.
And that's our show.
Thank you so much for watching tonight.
So, for questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, RG
You can
Sunico.
also check out our blog, badaypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversations in the comments below. Keep that signal alive and let us know what you think about Firefly and what you love the most. And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. We're experimenting with twice a week for now, but then hey, depending on how you respond and if there's clamor, we can go back to 3 or 4 episodes. We're just trying to also stay sane and have a life.
Or we might just have a movie.
But the movie is both a reboot and a continuation of Baduy Pride, the series. So stay tuned for that. So
Ooh, if there was a Firefly reboot, I only need one person to be in it, and I'll be happy.
who-
Russell Tovey
you just want Russell Tovey, period.
as a companion.
There you go. Once again, I'm Rocky,
And I'm Toby.
and this is Baduy Pride.
Thanks for watching.
Good night.